Once again this week, Donald Trump has said that he's still considering whether or not to pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords. Before he took office, he promised us he was going to pull us out. It's a horrible deal. I don't like it. I don't even believe in climate change. We're going to be done with this. Then he kind of softened. Then he said we're coming out. Then he softened again. And now again, he's saying that he's thinking about pulling the United States out of this. Now, during this up and down cycle of, schizophrenia that the president has had about the Paris climate deal, we have had business organizations actually come forward to warn the president that pulling us out of this deal is the worst idea you've ever had. And ironically, the people warning him about not pulling out of the deal are the fossil fuel industry. Oil companies, coal companies, fracking companies, they're all telling Donald Trump that if you pull us out of this deal, it's going to destroy American businesses. The reason for that is because American goods will be less competitive on a market when we do not sign on to a climate agreement that hundreds of other countries have also signed on to. Our goods will be more expensive because we don't reduce our emissions, and therefore our goods will be unsellable overseas. Donald Trump doesn't quite grasp that concept, and I know that fossil fuel companies are saying don't pull out of the agreement for their own selfish reasons, but at least they're telling him to stay in it. But now this week, with Donald Trump saying we may pull out of it, the United Nations finally stepped in and warned Donald Trump that if you do this, if you pull out of this Paris climate agreement, not only is it going to hurt your businesses by not being able to sell their goods, it's going to kill jobs in the United States. And here is why. Once those goods become unsellable overseas, once the prices get marked up so high because we're not part of the Paris Climate Agreement, once your businesses no longer have a voice on the global market because you pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, these companies are going to have to cut workers. Suddenly, there's less demand for their goods. Production has to slow down. You will lose thousands upon thousands of American jobs just by pulling out of this Paris Climate Agreement. Furthermore, you're losing even more jobs than you currently have because by pulling out of this agreement, and by your own admission, you want to cut investment in renewable energy, you're failing to create jobs that are out there ready to go. Jobs in solar, wind, hydropower. Those are jobs that could be created tomorrow if the federal government was willing to put in those investments. The renewable energy sector in the United States is the fastest growing energy sector in the country. We now employ more people in renewable than we do in coal, yet we're so worried about those coal jobs. Hillary Clinton actually had a plan when she was running for president to spend $30 billion retraining fossil fuel workers to work in the renewable energy sector. No jobs lost, just switched from one industry to the other. Nobody had to worry about anything. That was one of the best, that was the best plan that we ever heard from Hillary Clinton. One of the best plans we ever heard from a Democrat. But Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. Businesses don't want to do that, but they certainly don't want to lose their sales. They don't care about their workers. They just want to make sure they still get those profits. But the UN is telling us that there's no way you can have it both ways. You may not agree with climate change, fine. But if you want to keep the United States economically viable, you'd better stay in this agreement because you're dealing with forces. You're dealing with numbers that your tiny little Donald Trump brain can't even begin to understand. And that's one of the big problems with Donald Trump. He doesn't understand. He doesn't see the big picture. Man doesn't understand economics. He certainly doesn't understand climate change. And he damn sure doesn't understand that those two things, economics and climate change, are very closely related. And as we move forward in the United States in years to come, everybody is going to understand just how connected our economy is and how connected it can be in a good way to protecting the environment. If you like this video, make sure that you like, comment, and share, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to help support Ring of Fire, go to patreon.com/TheRingOfFire, become a monthly patron to help support independent progressive media.